everyone, and welcome to another edition of Learning Bites with Booming Encore. My name is Susan Williams, and I'm the founder of Booming Encore. And today I'm joined by Gary Foreman. Gary is one of our regular contributors at Booming Encore, and he's the founder of the Dollar Stretcher and also the publisher of a weekly newsletter called After 50 Finances. Today he's joining me to discuss expenses in retirement. Welcome, Gary.
Hi, good to be here.
Great to have you, Gary. So, Gary, let's just start. What are the typical expenses someone should anticipate in their retirement?
Well, it's surprising, actually. It's not that much different than before retirement. For most people, they will spend 30 to 40% of their income on housing. They'll spend between 10 and 20% on food, and they'll spend another 10 to 20% on transportation. And so those three items are the main things, whether you're retired or whether you're still working.
And what about leisure activities and things like that?
Well, those do tend to go up, I think, for a lot of us, if we can afford it, and that we're more likely to take cruises. You know, for instance, my wife has been after me for years to take a cruise, and while I'm still working, so I have a good excuse not to, although I'm a bad traveler, but that's a separate issue. But a lot of people, they, instead of taking an annual vacation, well, they go visit the grandkids 2 or 3 times a year. They may take that trip that they've always dreamed about. And so quite often travel expenses do go up. Now, the housing expenses, that's probably the main thing for people and retirees. I mean, we have so many choices today as to how we choose to live, whether we intend to stay in the same house that we raised our children and basically age in place. Are we looking to move to a 55-plus community? Are we looking for, I'm even seeing things where 2 or 3 couples are moving in together. Almost in a dorm-like setting where they have a common living room and kitchen, but then have 2 or 3 master suites. And then it's almost like a small commune. It's like we're reliving the 60s in our 60s in some ways. But so there's so many different choices, and that can change your finances for your housing dramatically. One thing I've seen a lot of is people. So many retirees don't want to move out of the home that they've lived in for 30 or 40 years, and yet the home is much bigger than they need. And so they've started renting out the rooms that their kids vacated 10 or 15 years ago when they took off for college.
Yeah, no, that seems to be definitely a trend. We're kind of calling it the boom mates.
Yeah, I love that phrase. I love that phrase.
Are there any other expenses that either go up drastically or shrink drastically in retirement, Gary? Well,
transportation can. So many families today, especially where you had both husband and wife working, required two cars. And then a lot of families, when they're both retired, you really can get by on one car. So that can drop your transportation expenses dramatically. Now if your commute took you into a major city where you were paying for parking or where you were paying for public transportation on a regular basis, that can drop dramatically. But it's easy enough. What I suggest to people, we used to, years ago when I was a financial planner, we used to tell people to figure that you'd save 20 to 30% of what you were spending when you retired. And I don't know that that's true. I think people are much better off to look at these big expense items, housing, transportation, and food, see how they specifically will be impacted, and they'll get a much better idea what their after retirement finances should look like.
And when they're actually doing this sort of forecasting or planning, Gary, is there anything that people tend to often forget or possibly underestimate when they're actually figuring out how much they're going to actually need to?
Yeah, one thing, and I know it's a little different, in Canada than it is in the States, although we both have similar issues, is some of the medical things. Mm-hmm. I know here in the States, we tend to think Medicare covers everything. Well, it doesn't. The average retiree is likely to spend $200,000 in uncovered medical care before they pass away. And I know, my understanding is the Canadian plan, there's a lot of things like wheelchairs and that are not covered by even the pharma plans. And every province is a little bit different too, from what I understand.
And then there's also dental as well.
Yes, medical and eye care is the same thing, if not mistaken, right? That's not covered as well. And look at glaucoma and all the kind of things that retirees are subject to. that's when they tend to crop up. Yes.
And what about like long-term care or support when you're aging? Are people actually considering that? Do they have any idea of how much they should be anticipating?
No, and again, that can be terribly expensive. I know. Well, you see the ads on television now for the different companies that have various caregivers that will come in and stay with seniors in their homes. Now, so many of us we're not at that point yet. We're still looking for that part-time job and still contributing and all. But so we tend to be more concerned for our parents. But yes, that when you start hiring somebody for $15 or $20 an hour, it can add up very quickly.
Yeah, and especially depending on how long you actually need them for too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So is there any other suggestions that you'd give for somebody to actually take a look at their retirement spending and things that they should, either try and focus on or make sure they keep in the headlights?
Well, I think the main thing is to go at it in an organized manner. I know most of us, we don't like the word budget. We don't like to think about keeping track of where we spend our money. But I think in the year or so prior to retirement, people would be wise to say, okay, this is what I'm spending on housing. This is what I'm spending on transportation. This is what I'm spending in the various areas. And then look at what you expect your lifestyle to be and make appropriate adjustments to that. And you can you can take a look at what your current is and say, well, I'm adding so much here and I'm subtracting so much there, and you can pretty much figure out how much you're going to spend after retirement. What I think too many people do is they just assume that their expenses are going to go down dramatically, and I think they also underestimate how far their pensions will go in retirement. I see way too many retirees that they're just a few $100s short each month of having a happy, the happy retirement that they thought they were going to have. Of course, we have, witnessed by your side, we have so many opportunities that I think our parents maybe didn't have for ways to increase income, whether it be driving for Uber or Lyft or selling our crafts or consulting. We have many more options than our parents had.
Certainly. And then the other thing is, I think, a lot of people have been planning based on like having a certain amount every year, but where there's actually some research now that shows that actually fluctuates depending on where you are in your retirement. So it might be a little more front-ended at the beginning as you kind of do some of more of those leisure activities and then a dip and then possibly, back-ended. So I think that's something that also needs to be considered. Do you agree?
Yes. Yeah. Well, the other thing, I think there's some expenses that can shift on us unexpectedly. I mean, you look at just what's happened with gasoline prices. They've been up and down continually. I think they've changed here in Florida 15 cents a gallon just in the last 10 days. And so if you plan on going to visit the grands and you're driving, well, it's going to cost a little more.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's basically, you also have to be flexible, I guess, and as things change, you need to also change.
Yeah, and like, at any stage of life, it's always good if you have just a little bit of a cushion where your income is just a little larger than your expenses so you can handle that bump in the road. Yeah. And another thing that I think does surprise some people, especially if they want to age in place, is the jobs we used to do, the home repairs, the maintenance tasks around our home that we used to do. Quite often, we get to a point where we don't anymore, and that can get expensive.
Yeah. No, so that's some excellent advice, Gary. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and hopefully people will actually take a really good look at their expenses in retirement, and so that they don't experience any unnecessary surprises. So to everyone out there, hope this information you found valuable and it helps you live your best booming encore. Bye for now.